Hello everyone. In the seventh FAQ program, I'm hoping to talk about the importance of exposing yourself to the language that you want to learn as a second language, because the chances are you will very often not be familiar with it, simply because in second language situations it's possible to not need it in your practical life, so that there is no urgency in learning. If any Sri Lankan who is afraid of English now goes to the UK or the USA, they will probably learn things within a month or so, because not knowing English would probably mean death or something, because you cannot survive without communicating in the language the people around you speak. Having said that, of course, my experience in New York had shown me there are pockets where English is hardly spoken and only Spanish is, for example. So my comment, take it with a bit of nuance as well. But coming back to Sri Lanka, many people who are not born into a bilingual context, by which I mean where the parents speak Sinhala and um, English or Tamil and English, the chances of being exposed to this language is very little. So, if you are a parent, it becomes your responsibility, if you wish your child to learn English, that you provide a background that has English in it from the earliest times. Now, one thing you can do is, if you have internet and can afford the bill, expose them to cartoons, good cartoons in English, and films in English like Kung Fu Panda or Coco or Rio or anything like that, because they will enjoy looking at it, looking at the story, enjoying the beauty of the pictures and the humor in it. They would acquire the language even without knowing. And if you have a radio, please put it into the English channel so that in the background they hear English and it becomes part of their lives. Speaking about kids, there is something that we are doing with through my campus and the National Library Services Board to try and have nationwide a network of little library centers, which we have called acquisition centers, to make such material available to anyone who wants to access it. But I will speak about that later when things are um, more set. But for the moment, even without outside intervention, if you can get your radio into the English channel or get the internet playing children's things, you can help your children. Now, if you're an adult and you're listening to me, there are other ways in which you can expose yourself to the language. You know, I have from the beginning of my channel spoken about the value of reading. And if you listen to Professor Liyanage Amarakirti or Kaushalya Kumarasinghe, they have said how much they have learned this language through reading. And I've again explained this earlier. Read what you like, read what interests you, read what makes your curiosity burn, because it makes it so much easier than reading something which is boring. Even if other people have said this is good literature or something, follow your heart in what you want to read. If you're an adult, listen to news, because all these channels have like a 2 minute segment of news every hour. So listening to that helps, because your general knowledge would also make it clear to you what they're talking about. At the beginning, you might not understand. It doesn't matter. Do not give up. Learning a second language is a long process, and make it part of your life. And the example I always give between someone who is trying to learn it without being exposed to the language and someone who's trying to learn it within the usage of the language is like someone trying to teach you how to swim without making you get into the water. You cannot. The grammar is something like an explanation of how you should move your arms or your hands or your legs. But unless you get into the water, and swim, you're not going to learn it. So language is like that. Unless you get into the context of English, unless you hear it. So the water is the environment in which English exists, and you can create it. So if you watch films that interest you, if you turn the radio channel, if you have one, or at least on the phone, into English channels, and you create the environment for yourself, you're halfway there in creating your own water. The newspapers now, after all these problems we've had, that's not a common sight anymore, the physical one. So you don't get English newspapers coming to houses anymore, very sadly, or even hostels, which had, all three languages coming in. But you can access news websites through the internet, through your phone, so that what you're reading is not very unfamiliar. If you also read that in Sinhala, you have a rough idea of what everybody is saying. News is one thing. So songs are another thing. Films are something else. If you are on YouTube, can afford the internet, there are many fun programs you can watch. Follow whatever interests you. So much is available in the English language through the internet. On the phone, you can watch it. So it's a matter of you deciding to expose yourself, do it through fun and interest, because that will take you through sheer curiosity, and the language learning will even be subconscious half the time, right? Because unless you learn to be within the language, it's difficult to learn. People like Krashen have said successful language learning is something called I+1. I is the level, the intelligence of the language you have at the moment, the input that is at your level. So your existing level +1 should be the input that you get, a little bit higher than what you have now. And this is a cycle that keeps going up and down, which means your existing level goes up a little bit by little bit if you keep exposing yourself to the language. So I+1 means what you have, the knowledge you have now, expose yourself to something a little bit higher, and then your level raises up, and again, +1, little by little. But unless you expose yourself, unless you use it, that's why I said, even with mistakes, unfortunately in Sri Lanka, you might get laughed at it, we must encourage learners to use the language. And you can provide, at least if you're a teacher, in a classroom context, for people to use it without feeling bad about it. And there are other ways of helping, which I have spoken about. If you can find a friend to talk in English who will not judge you, who will not laugh at you, perfect. Right? So things like that. Just go up a little bit by little bit when you learn your language, be with it. So what I have told you today, through songs, play songs in English that you like. Even when you're doing something at the background, if it doesn't disturb you, it becomes part of your background. Watch films that interest you. If you're a parent, put little, like beautiful little cartoons and films like Kung Fu Panda for your children. Let them enjoy it. Don't even talk to them about learning the language. Let them enjoy it, because they will keep listening and hearing it. On YouTube, watch whatever videos in English that you like. There is a danger when you expose yourself to British or American films and videos, you might get that accent, but don't worry about it. When you use it in Sri Lanka, you'll probably get the Sri Lankan accent as well. That's then my fourth one, which I love, read, please. Read whatever you can lay your hands on if it interests you. You can also read on the internet now. Even if you type simple English or level 1 English readers, there's a whole lot of material that you will get. There's something called audiobooks. Audiobooks, if you can, if it's on the internet, I think there is, you can listen. Even if you're sweeping the house or doing whatever, put it on. It becomes part of your background. It becomes familiar. Familiarity does not harm formal instruction. In fact, it will help. so that you think this is part of my life. And if you're a parent, please make this language familiar to your children as early as you want. If you can get nursery rhyme CDs, play it when they are sleeping, when they are 1, 2, because it becomes a part of that child's life. They will like it, they will enjoy listening to it, and therefore they won't be scared when they come into formal instructions or have to speak it when the context demands them to speak it. Familiarity means everything in language acquisition. So thank you. Once we set the plans for what we are hoping to do through libraries and hopefully nursery schools, I will explain that in more detail. For the moment, remember, use every opportunity that you have now to expose yourself, and if it's for your child or your children, to this language whenever you can. Thank you.